Hello, everybody. Today I'll be talking about verbal behavior and the differences between verbal behavior and nonverbal behavior. First, I'd like to start off with something that I run into a lot at work, um, which is a common misconception uh, with many of my coworkers. So, sometimes when we receive a new client, uh, we'll have their previous educational providers give us a description of the client, you know, what they're capable of, their forms of communication. And one of the things I run into all the time is that people say he or she is nonverbal and communicates using a PECS book. The reason why this frustrates me is because using a PECS book is verbal behavior. The client has been taught to hand over a PEC, and the staff have been trained to respond by giving the student, the client, what it is that they are asking for via that PEC. For example, I had one student who joined a classroom. She was 8 years old. They told us she was nonverbal and that she communicated with PECS. So day one, we gave her a PECS book, and immediately she flipped through it and asked for goldfish. And we, as trained, teachers, gave her some goldfish to give her what she asked for. She asked for goldfish, so we're going to give her goldfish. A lot of people think that just because it's not vocal, it's not verbal behavior. The thing that frustrates me about that is that verbal behavior does not have to be vocal. And even though I work with a lot of very, very smart people, some of them still use the term nonverbal, and I really, really prefer the term non-vocal verbal because they're not communicating vocally, but they are still communicating and making requests and, having conversations without vocals. Another example of verbal behavior that I think is kind of a misconception is usually a baby's first word is mama or dada or one of the two. And really the baby isn't trying to ask for their mom or their dad. This is just something that they've heard over and over, and they're repeating it. It doesn't really have a function. Whereas once the child understands that they're hungry and can point to a bottle, that's verbal behavior because their parents have been trained to respond to the pointing to the bottle by bringing the bottle over, filling it, and giving it to the child. So as you can see in that example, the gesture to the bottle is verbal behavior, and the mama and dada isn't verbal behavior until it is connected with mom and dad, and the response follows where mom or dad approach. Another quick example that came to mind was if I was a coach on a baseball team, and I was telling, the first person on first base to steal, I would tell them, steal if you get on base. This is verbal behavior because they are listening and they know how to respond based off what I'm telling them. In the other example, I'm watching a baseball game at home alone, and I'm telling the team, if you get on here, steal second base. And then the batter gets on base, and I'm going, steal. I really have no effect on what that baseball player is going to do because they're not an active listener. It's the TV. It's a monitor. There is no communication back and forth. I am the listener of the TV. The TV is not listening to me. So technically, that would really be nonverbal behavior because there is no listener and I have no effect on what is happening in that baseball game. Whereas when I'm the coach, I have the effect to tell whoever is on first base to steal and the responses that they would steal. And that's the difference between verbal and nonverbal behavior.